Hey everyone, I'm Casey Hollins, and you're watching Wednesday's Sportsnet Digital Dose. We've got Jeff Simmons in studio today to talk a little NFL draft. We're only really a day away, a day and a half, if you want to say that. And I know people are getting pretty excited about it. I have a couple questions for you, starting with, I'm wondering about the quarterbacks this year. Last year was a huge year for quarterbacks in the draft class, and they obviously made huge waves in the NFL once they were drafted in their rookie seasons. How do you think that that this year's quarterback draft class kind of compares to last year's?
Well, it's unfair to compare this group with last year. Last year was an unprecedented year. We haven't seen anything like that almost in 10 years. A class like that doesn't come around too often. Luck, RG3, even Russell Wilson. I think Tannehill is going to be pretty good too. This year is a lot different. There could be only one guy go in the first round, where last year we saw the first two picks, 3 in the top 10. Geno Smith is said to be the top guy on a lot of boards, but there's a lot of questions about him. A lot of teams don't even like him for sure. There's a couple guys could go at the end of the first round, but they aren't so sure. So it's a really weird quarterback year. There could be a lot of second-round picks, but it's a lot different. No upper echelon, top 5. There might be none in the top 10.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare for a position like that.
Do you think that there are any quarterbacks other than Geno Smith who may or may not make a difference on the team he goes to that could make an impact the same way that the rookies did last year?
Oh, yeah. There's guys who can play right away. There's Ryan Nassib, who could end up in Buffalo. His old college coach is now the Bills coach. He's kind of like an Andy Dalton. He's accurate. He's smart. He's got solid arm strength, but he doesn't have that high upside. Matt Barkley came in as a huge prospect from USC, but he's got some of the same thing. He's smart. He's tough, but he doesn't have that elite arm strength. So some of the cold weather places might not want a guy like Barkley to throw through the wind. And some USC quarterbacks, Sanchez, Leinart, haven't worked out that well. So that's a stigma tied to him, even though it might be undeserved.
Yeah, it's sort of unfair, but I understand that.
Yeah.
Now, a name that a lot of people have been talking about leading up to the draft, whether it's warranted or not, is Manti Te'o, just because of all the off-the-field drama. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, if you think that, now that we've actually gotten to the point of the draft, there was some speculation about whether or not people would care, about his off-the-field drama at all. Do you think that it's going to affect where he gets drafted?
I actually don't. I think he handled everything pretty well after the weird stuff that came out earlier in the draft process. I think it's pretty thin middle linebacker group in the first round. And I think if you just put on the tape, maybe other than that Alabama national championship game, his tape is pretty good. And if he did well in the interviews, I think he's got a pretty good shot of going in the first round. The team most tied with them is the Vikings, who have a big hole at middle linebacker. They have 2 picks at the bottom of the first round. They're the team most tied with them. They've drafted a lot of Notre Dame guys in the past couple of years. So I would not be surprised to see them, or maybe the Ravens at the end of the first round, who lost Ray Lewis, so they got a hole there too.
So I'm kind of curious as to what other players, we talked about quarterbacks briefly, but if there's any other players you think might make a big impact on their team as soon as they get there, or maybe even if you could tell me the player you think might make the biggest impact.
The guy I really like, and a lot of people have said he might be the most exciting player in this draft, is Tavon Austin from West Virginia. He's a small 5'9" receiver, kind of shaped like Percy Harvin, but he's an explosive player. The way the NFL is going with the spread offenses and the way they move receivers around nowadays, he can be an explosive playmaker right from the get-go. He was Geno Smith's best target at West Virginia last year. He can take the ball out of the backfield. He can play out of the slot. He can get down the field. So there's a lot of talk about him. I have him in my mock draft, which just went up on Sportsnet.ca, going to St. Louis. And they are in need for a receiver, but there's a ton of teams in the top 10 and even the middle of the first round who could trade up for a guy like this. He's that explosive.
Well, that'll be interesting to see. It's always interesting to see where teams value certain players and then how they perform next season. So, like Jeff mentioned, he does have a mock draft up on Sportsnet.ca, and we'll have more draft coverage today and tomorrow leading up to the draft tomorrow night. So be sure to check it out. Anyway, that's all the time we've got. Thanks for coming in, Jeff.
No problem.
And check back here in a little bit for another Sportsnet Digital Dose.